Welcome back. Thank you for looking in. Continuing our chat about what's contained in the Grand Design books that's conveyed to me in my collaboration with Shabaka. One of the things that came up too earlier on in the whole discussion there was a notion of freedom. Now, we've come in to Earth as human, and if we can accept that maybe that we're spirit beings, that we've always been spirit beings, that coming into Earth was just this physical adventure, if you like, in order to help us to grow in awareness, to expand our consciousness, to find more that freedom that's from the separations talked about in the last session. And then you can imagine then the soul coming in from all the freedom of spirit and being able to be wherever they wanted to be, to do whatever they wanted to do, just by thinking about things. And then coming into this little body and all the restriction of that, and having to cope with that, and having to allow themselves to be looked after and so on, and then to grow up, and then having to live within the conventions of the society that they have come into, and all the restrictions placed by that, and indeed all the societal do's and don'ts, and feeling perhaps bringing with them a sense of the freedom of spirit, and then having to confine themselves within very much the restrictions of the physical world. And growing up with that, and then dealing with all the things of adolescence, and then into adulthood, and then moving on into older age and so on, and the different sort of restrictions that came with all of those changes. Well, you could say then, what's the point of it? Well, it seems that it's helping us to face ourselves. It's sort of like putting us up against a wall and then having to come to terms with ourselves in some way. Now, we have to accept that we don't have the freedom, say, to move from one place to the other, just like that, by levitation or whatever. Maybe some people have been able to do that, but generally speaking, most of us haven't. So we have to depend on public transport or cars or whatever. And we have to deal with all the other restrictions of having to have money, having to have shelter, having to have having our health, if you like, being able to cope with life in that way. So, yes, the idea is that if we can find freedom within all the restriction. So the question is, how do we do that? So we have to look at then how it is that we operate in the world. And when we start to look at it, we look at it in terms of the way we feel and the way we think. And of course, the feeling part of it is very obvious from the early stages, like that how children react and respond to their feelings, and they don't think about things. But then the thought processes become more conditioned as we grow up, because we have to adapt ourselves to the environment that we're in, and all the rules and regulations of it and so on. And so our thinking becomes perhaps limited by all of that. But we do eventually come to the conclusion, one hopes, that the only way that we'll ever find freedom within the physical condition is through our thoughts. That in actual fact, nobody can ever tell us what to think. They try to, and they maybe try to impose their ways of thinking on us, and sometimes we allow them to do that. We allow them to do it perhaps even unconsciously, because we feel maybe that they know better and so on. But essentially it would be very important if we could remember that in fact we and only we have the freedom to think whatever thoughts that we want to think, and in that way that we can find the ultimate freedom. As I said already, like our feelings are as they are, our feelings are, they just are, but our thoughts impose themselves on our feelings because of the conditioning that we have become used to. It's an interesting thing that to see how, say when we're in company and there's a discussion going on and people are giving opinions on different things, we find how we often jump to a particular judgment on whatever opinions are expressed. And it's very easy to do that, and we do it because of our particular conditioning. But it can be a very useful exercise to just to allow a discussion to go on and not to make any judgment at all on whatever is being said. And just listen and just feel the freedom of it, that one doesn't have to go along with anything that's being said or whatever, you know. And that doesn't mean that one has to be a zombie or whatever and not to have opinions, but it gives one a freedom to understand that that one isn't confined by any opinion or any judgment. The whole area then of our own being, if you like, that we're no longer constrained by conditioning. Now that of course is the ideal, and obviously it's not so easy to find that, but it's useful to have it as an ideal and to be aware of it. The awareness is the important thing, I think, that okay, all sorts of things can happen to us and we can maybe think various things, do certain things and so on, but that if we bring that sort of sense of awareness that it's not that once we have that in us, that we're aware of what's going on, aware of how we are responding to conditioning and so on, then we achieve a certain freedom from it. It's a difficult area, and of course obviously we've been through it, we've struggled with it, we've worked with it through many lifetimes perhaps, trying to free ourselves from it. So it may be a tall order to say, like, now that one can be totally free of conditioning in an instant, but yet to understand how it works. So maybe again, in what I've been saying to you, that we find something interesting that will be helpful for you. Once again, thank you very much for listening, and bye for now.